Good morning! As the cold season is well and truly upon us here in merry Norway, I am finding myself in want of some nice functional warms. And today I thought I would try my hand at some 18th century mitts. Long mitts were really popular in the 18th century as sleeves generally stopped just below the elbow, but I think they will also be fantastic under capes, over shirts, and just generally for puttering about in chilly workrooms. I am basing my pattern off this plate from 1765, intended for glove makers. Considering how straight most of the sleeve is compared to my own measurements, I suspect that either it is cut a bit big and then pinned to fit the individual, or this is merely a guideline and made to measure in each case. I am going to assume the latter and adapt my pattern based on my own measurements. The fleshy part near the elbow especially needed a lot more room. This is, nevertheless, one of those rare garments that is cut on the bias of our fabric rather than on the straight grain. This is a bit more wasteful, but gives us that little bit extra of much appreciated stretch. To reduce waste a bit, we can cut our thumbs from the scraps around our mitts. If you think my seam allowance on top of the thumb seems a bit narrow, that is correct. I learned that my pattern was too tall and too narrow. I will go back and change my pattern piece to reflect this and not just scribble notes on it at some point. Probably. There is no way that could come back to bite me. Also, how absolutely gorgeous is this mottled green wool that I found. I'm not going to lie, a not insignificant part of me wants to take this and just make it my entire personality. And then for the lining we... Excuse me? Ma'am? Excuse... Okay. What if I just... No? Alright then. This twill linen has a good bias stretch too and is super soft. It will make the most luxurious lining. To make room for our thumb, I am just cutting carefully into the seam allowance, starting small because we can always cut more later if we need it. And the thumbs themselves from our scraps, of course. Let me just rearrange my entire workspace to accommodate your visit, ma'am. I do not want to deal with fitting linings into tiny spaces, so the first thing we're gonna do is sandwich the wool and linen for our thumb together and backstitch those along the seam lines. I am starting on top to ensure my points do not slide out of place. This is not a terribly curved seam, but I will clip into the seam allowance all the same. We can then turn our thumb right side out and employ a point turner or other suitable blunt device to turn out all our corners nicely. I am doing a sort of alternating backstitch at the very edges of my turned out thumbs to sew them together, also known as the whatever works method. To attach, I am first folding in and pinning all my clipped seam allowance. before sliding our thumb through and repinning all the way around. Stitching everything from the outside because that seemed the least finicky. I can understand why so many extant mitts have decorative stitching in this area. Next, we have the lining for the rest of the mitt. And this is done exactly like the thumb, only on a larger scale. Starting with the top, just because this will be the most noticeable part and most important to get right. Yes, thread marking my chalk lines before they rub off would have been ideal, but this was such a quick little project. This really will only take a moment. Top done, we can go ahead and do a small fitting before backstitching our merry way down the length of our mitt on either side. Now, we only need to flip our mitt right side out and fold in the seam allowance of the thumb hole in our lining and secure it. Before we can stitch up our mitt though, I'm just going to go around the edge and do a really subtle top stitch. This just helps keep all our edges exactly where we want them, and if we are careful, not really showing on the right side. Finally, we can stitch our way down the length of our mitt, knowing that everything on the inside is smooth and lined and finished. And also, I am not folding in the wool and lining at the very bottom just yet. I know my wicked ways, and if I did, they would 100% not match up. So we are not doing that until we have made our way almost all the way to the bottom. A bit of a snip to line things up, and then fold everything inside the edge, and the last thing we need to do is just to sew all the way around. And with that, this quick little project is already done. I am not embarrassed to say that I haven't really taken these off since I snipped the last thread. They are amazing. 10 out of 10 recommend. Nice and warm, but still allowing you to keep your finger movement and dexterity. Be it for puttering about in the workroom or going for a bundled up autumn walk. I am loving these. Also, a big thank you to my amazing Patreon and welcome. We like science and staying cozy here. See you next time.